Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. We have a fascinating discussion today. Boy, talking about two stories that have nothing to do with each other. The first hour, we're going to be talking to Dr. Sandra Kaufmann. On our last interview, she said something. She said, everybody's pre-diabetic. That's a pretty bold statement, but it looks like it's true. And the medical orthodoxy fails to look at other things when diagnosing insulin resistance and the onset of type 2 diabetes that really should be taken into account in order to truly assess a person's risk of becoming type 2 diabetic. We're going to talk about that today and what you can do about it. Later in the show, my good friend Jerome Williams is going to come on. They told him it couldn't be done. People in the high Sierras have problems with rattlesnakes, and really they hire people to get rid of the rattlesnakes, and it's a complete failure. Well, Jerome has taught his dog to sniff out rattlesnakes, and they are capturing them and relocating them and doing some amazing things, not only for the landowners in the high Sierras and around California, Nevada, and all that, but also supplying companies that use rattlesnake venom to make drugs. We're going to talk about that later in the show. Of course, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods. They make the tasty pastry. Everybody who tries the tasty pastry loves them. Love is the operative word here. 20 grams of high-quality protein, less than 1 gram of sugar. If you tried them when they first came out, you have to try the new tasty pastry. The cake-style tasty pastry is soft and fluffy and light and delicious and really tastes like you're eating a piece of cake. But you're not. You're not cheating. You're staying in your lane with your dietary requirements. They come in blueberry, red velvet cake, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, hot fudge sundae, birthday cake style. What am I missing? I'm missing one of them. Oh, and cookies and cream. And the outside looks like an Oreo cookie and tastes like an Oreo cookie. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary. Use the code SHR10 to save 10% off. And don't forget, listen for the secret word during the commercial break. Email it to onair@superhumanradio.net. And make sure you include your address, and we'll send you a free box of tasty pastries. It doesn't get better than that. Also, I want to mention we're doing a casting call for people in the audience who have lived the superhuman lifestyle and are above the ages of 50 who have survived the COVID-19 virus. I want you to email me at onair@superhumanradio.net and just tell me your age and what your experience was fighting off this horrible virus. We're going to be doing some special episodes of Muscle Saves Lives. The first show is going to be next week with Dr. Suzanne Turner. This should be fascinating. So don't forget, if you've had COVID and survived it, you're over 50 years old, and you live the superhuman lifestyle that we talk about on the show day in and day out, email me at onair@superhumanradio.net, and you may be one of our guests on a special episode of Muscle Saves Lives. And now, without further delay, Dr. Suzanne Kaufmann is back to see us. How you doing, Dr. Kaufmann?
Good. Although I'm not Suzanne. That's my sister. I'm Sandra.
Did I say Suzanne Kaufmann?
That's okay. Yes.
No, I did. I'm so sorry. I was talking about Dr. Suzanne Turner earlier.
I know.
Okay. Dr. Sandra Kaufmann, how are you?
Fantastic, and I'm happy to be here. This is exciting.
So you made a statement, a pretty bold statement, on its face value, and I'm sure that people would love to hear you explain why you believe this. But you said, obviously, everybody who is not already diagnosed as type 2 diabetic is pre-diabetic. Talk about that. Why do you feel that way?
So the body needs glucose and sugars by default, right? It's how we make energy. You can't live without sugar. And over the course of our lifetime, that causes problems in every arena. I am obsessed with AGEs, which are advanced glycation endpoints. And over the course of time, they destroy all of your body, from your brain to your heart, to your blood vessels, to your pancreas, to everything. And my argument is that it is extremely accelerated in diabetics and people that are considered pre-diabetic. It's as well accelerated, but it's going to happen to all of us eventually, which makes all of us theoretically pre-diabetic because we're all suffering from what's going to happen after years of glucose.
How does the medical orthodoxy qualify type 2 diabetes, the onset? When you go to your doctor and you show these markers, they say, uh-oh, you have type 2 diabetes. How do they do that?
So it's all numbers, right? So they test your resting blood glucose and they give you a fasting glucose level, and they check your hemoglobin A1C and a variety of other factors. And they determine if you're a type 2 diabetic. And then if your numbers are slightly below that, they say you are pre-diabetic and going in that direction. Now, you have to keep in mind that these numbers don't mean anything. It's completely esoteric, right? Yeah. And all the different labs have slightly different numbers. So you always want to check when you have your labs checked, like what they consider normal and abnormal. But in reality, it doesn't make that much difference if you're point something below or above, because it's a spectrum. And I am just convinced that regardless of where your glucose level is at any one given time, we are organisms that require it, and we get glycated over time, as does every organism that requires glucose, which is pretty much every organism, well, at least every animal type organism.
I know people in my audience are going, well, wait a minute. What about those people who stay in ketosis all the time and depend on ketone bodies for fuel? And they can actually operate with very, very low levels of blood sugar. I remember when I used intermittent fasting and ketosis as an experiment, my fasting blood sugar in the morning was below 60, but I felt fine. I was able to go to the gym. Are those people better off than us?
They're less glycated for sure. Absolutely. I would venture to guess, however, that they didn't start doing that until moderately recently, right?
Right.
When you're a kid, you eat the Twinkies and the candy and then this and then the other, and everyone eats a Dunkin' Donuts every now and then. So even the people that have now converted, they are helping themselves now, but they're still sitting on 40 plus years of glycation.
Right. Can glycation be reversed?
Maybe. So the way glycation works is you need a glucose, or actually any sugar, right? Fructose is actually way worse than glucose. It's 7.5 times as reactive as glucose, which is sort of interesting. But these sugar molecules react with proteins and also lipids and DNA in an oxidizing environment, and you also need a metal chelator. And in that environment, you create an AGE or an ALE or a DNA adduct. Anyway, the first step is reversible. And then after that, they're not really that reversible. It becomes less and less reversible. And it's about a 7 non-enzymatic step process to create an AGE. At one point, there was something that they thought could reverse them, but they took it off the market, so it's not available. Right now, in a test tube, the only thing that can actually reverse it is something called shibullic acid. We don't know if it works in real animals yet. But the good news is that because there's so many steps to create AGEs, that there are many, many ways to sort of block it as it's forming. And I think I probably take all of them.
So as long as you intercede before that seventh layer, so to speak, is done, you might be able to reverse it.
Well, it depends on how you define reverse. In terms of an AGE being adhered to a collagen molecule in your heart and ripping it to pieces, you may not be able to get rid of that one. But in terms of making it, in terms of prohibiting more from showing up, you probably can do that. And that's what we're sort of aiming at. So by decreasing the amount of glucose in your body, and you can decrease absorption rates by changing your microbiota, by affecting the enzymes at the intestinal absorption level, by decreasing gluconeogenesis, you're decreasing the glucose to start. And then as you work along the enzymatic pathway, you can block each and every one of those steps. And you kind of need to, because there's 20 different types of AGEs, and they all sort of respond differently to different types of interventions. So
I'm going to ask you this question in a minute. So what role does iron play, or a metal, in this AGE formation process?
So it needs a chelator. And the higher the iron levels, the more likely you are to have AGE levels. So agents that chelate iron and a variety of other metals can actually decrease the AGE production rate.
What was the drug that they took off the market that seemed to have a benefit?
Algebraium.
Algebraium?
Well, it never actually made it to market. It was in testing, and then the company went bankrupt, and then they had some side effects that may or may not have been related to it. I really wish someone would buy up that patent and make it, because I think it would be life-saving. At the moment, there are sort of other things that we can do that the medical industry is working on.
Algebraium?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like algebra. Okay. Talk about the different types of AGEs, please.
So it just depends on what type of protein it's stuck to and where in the pathway it is. The most prominent one is something called CML, but there's CEL. There's just a variety of them. There's 20 some pathways, or 20 some outcomes in terms of the AGEs. And the reality is that you just need to have innumerable blockades to get to all of them. Whichever ones they are, it doesn't really matter in terms of details. But the idea is it's not going to be one size fits all, and one agent is going to block all AGEs. It needs to be a multi-step process.
So it sounds to me like if you are eating, and even if you're eating high protein, high fat, your body is still creating glucose.
Of course.
So as long as you're alive, you're glycating.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct.
Well,
so
that's
it's a matter of time.
This is the last show we're ever going to do, folks. We can't save ourselves from that one. No, I'm only kidding.
Well, but that's the difference between a diabetic having neuropathy and neurogenesis or neural decompensation when they're 40 or 50 versus, having issues when you're 100, 110, 120. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just, that's why we're all pre-diabetic. It is going to get us. It's just a matter of time and how long we can avoid it, and can we minimize the damage. And knowledge is power. So if you can act on these things now, you're better off, right? So when you go to the physician, they tell you, oh, you're not pre-diabetic, or your number is point such and such below the threshold. The answer is, it doesn't really matter what he's telling you. You need to act now.
And in fact, we talked about a study that maybe 10 years ago that showed that people who remain in that pre-diabetic zone have all the same problems that full-blown type 2 diabetics have. It just comes slower.
That's
so
exactly
this exactly speaks to what you're saying right now.
That is exactly correct. And it's not surprising. It just takes time. And collagen-based tissues, because collagen turns over every 17 years. So it's an extremely long-lived molecule. And it has a lot of lysines in it. And AGEs love to stick to lysine for whatever reason. So your collagen gets destroyed. And unfortunately, this leads to a whole lot of things that are bad, i.e., especially cardiovascular disease, right? It leads to congestive heart failure. It leads to high blood pressure. It leads to fibrosis in your lungs. It leads to glycation in your eyes so you can't see. It leads to kidney failure. And so all of the things that are collagen-based are sort of just devastated by these AGEs. The thing that people notice the most is, of course, skin drooping. So AGEs cling to our skin and it breaks because of abnormal cross-linking and that sort of thing. And then our skin droops and we look old, we feel old, and we have to know that what's happening on the outside is also happening on the inside.
So, I'm listening to something, these 7 layers, these 7 reactions, these 7 things that process to create this full-blown AGE. And isn't there anything we can do to any one of them once the AGE is formed to kind of let it decompose?
Not yet. You can actually urinate out some AGEs as they float around in your blood system, but you can't get rid of all of them. They're just sticky.
Yeah, I mean, this makes me want to find out how to to break down AGEs. Whether I'm not just thinking about drugs. I'm thinking about sunlight. I'm thinking about electromagnetic fields. I'm thinking about just tactile, body work where somebody just kind of digs into your muscles and works on you. Is there anything that you think possesses any hope that people can use? Maybe 5 different things?
Well, so you can't really get rid of them yet, but you can avoid their forming, right? So we know, for example, that carnosine is a transglycosylating agent. It can't lift it once it's already formed, but in the immediate or in the stepwise process, it can break it up. So I encourage everyone to be on carnosine. Pyridoxamine, which is a form of B6, does it as well. There are a whole lot of agents that do that, as well as other really cool things. So, for example, we'll just talk about metformin for a minute. Metformin can break up the process. It's one of my favorite things because it changes your microbiota. So it decreases the glucose coming in, decreases gluconeogenesis, changes the AGEs, changes a whole lot of things. It even changes the number of receptors for AGEs that you have. And that's probably something we should talk about as well. On cells, there are receptors. And I love the initials for these things, right? Because AGEs is bad enough. And then a receptor for an AGE is a rage, right? So we're all raging inside. Just right. Fantastic names. Anyway, so when an AGE lands on a receptor, one of 2 things can happen. Either one, it can get engulfed and destroyed, but more likely it just sets off an immune reaction or an inflammatory reaction. I'm sorry. So these things just cause huge inflammatory reactions everywhere, which adds, of course, to aging, which of course is one of my tenets. It's tenet 5. But many things down-regulate the receptors for AGEs. So that's beneficial because you can have them and they do less damage. The other thing that's really cool is the top of the receptor and the bottom part that's in the cell can be separated. And your body actually makes these things called soluble rages. And it's just the top head that doesn't really do anything. It just floats around in your circulation. And what this does is it bonds the AGE and then you just pee it out and it goes away. And interestingly enough, statins increase the production of soluble rages. So we all think that statins are very important because they lower cholesterol, but they actually also get rid of AGEs.
So inflammation. I mean, statins have been now repurposed for inflammation. What role does inflammation play in the formation of AGEs?
So it's sort of like the evil death spiral. Inflammation causes more oxidative problems, and oxidation leads to more AGEs, which is another reason that all of these things are interconnected, right? So my tenet 2 is oxidation issues. It's in the mitochondria. So if you sort of load up on free radical scavengers, you can lower the risk of AGE production.
You talked about carnosine, but the reality is that beta-alanine is a better supplement if you want to raise carnosine levels. If you take carnosine, it's first broken down into its component amino acids before it can be reassembled. But if you take beta-alanine is the limiting factor for tissue carnosine. Have you looked at beta-alanine as an alternative for managing AGEs?
So what's interesting is in the literature, it demonstrates that, and I get it, you're right. It's a combination of, it's a dihistidine, or I'm losing my mind. It's a dipeptide. Thank you. Yeah. And you're right. The body breaks it down and then repurposes it. But bizarrely enough, studies have demonstrated that if you only take the components, it's not as effective as taking carnosine. And I don't know why that is, but that's what studies have demonstrated. So does it make a hell of a lot of difference? No, take the carnosine.
I am personally opposed to taking metformin for a variety of reasons, but I'm not opposed to taking something like berberine. A good friend of mine who is a super athlete, super strong, and he's in his late 40s now. He believes in berberine, and he, like I, uses growth hormone, which kind of tips the scales and makes you more likely to be insulin resistant than less. And you and I have talked about that off the air. And he seems to believe that berberine kind of rights a lot of the wrongs that he's doing. Is berberine an alternative to metformin? Do you see a lot of the same benefits from berberine as you do metformin?
You know what? It's what's really amazing is on a molecular basis, they're extremely different. But if you look at what they do, they're extraordinarily similar.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the AMP kinase, in terms of the mTOR inhibition, in terms of gluconeogenesis, all of those things are extraordinarily similar. They both change your gut microbiota toward making short-chain fatty acids. But interestingly enough, they select out for different bacteria that end up doing exactly the same thing. And studies have noticed that they do reduce your blood glucose roughly the same, which is kind of nice. So they probably are moderately interchangeable with slight differences. Some people have seen best results by using both, maybe 500 of one in the morning, 500 in the afternoon, or alternating by day or alternating by week to sort of get, increasing the benefits while decreasing any of the detrimental effects of either of them.
So Dominic D'Agostino is coming on the show in a couple of weeks to talk about the effects of ketone bodies,
Mm-hmm.
BHB and or ketone esters. When you reverse it, when you replace a certain percentage of calorie intake with ketone precursors, you see a complete change in insulinogenesis. You see people who are type 2 diabetic start to return to a more normal insulin production variant. What about the ketone? Have you looked at ketones in this discussion and how they may affect, since they have this effect on insulin and blood sugar, do you think they play a role maybe in helping slow down AGE accumulation?
I have not specifically looked at it because it really hasn't been looked at in the literature, and that's what I do. I read bench research. Although you can hypothesize that, of course, it makes sense. Insulin is triggered by glucose levels, and if you're reducing your glucose levels, of course, you're going to reduce your insulin because it's a feedback loop. I don't know what the long-term effects of a ketone diet are, and I don't think anyone does. It's probably going to turn out to be one of those things that intermittently doing it is beneficial, but maybe not over the long term.
Tell me why. Why would supplementing with exogenous ketones? Your body produces ketones on its own. Why would that be a more short-term approach?
I'm not saying short-term necessarily. I'm saying that it wouldn't necessarily be something you want to do all the time because you get less energy from ketones. And we know over the course of time, you can train your brain to use ketones instead of glucose, but it doesn't work as efficiently. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if over the long term, and no one knows over the long term, if there's any detrimental effects to changing the fuel that your brain lives with.
Interesting. We're going to take a quick commercial break. So for those of you watching the show or listening to the show, if you want to actually take advantage of some of the great stuff that Dr. Kaufmann has done, you can actually get her app and her book by going to the website Kaufmann, and that's Kaufmann, protocol.com. Both the app and the book will give you insights into many of the things that she's discovered and she promotes as a form of anti-aging. And a lot of the things we're talking about today, you'll find there. So check it out. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. Stay tuned.
You
heard us talk about the power of copper peptides here on the show. Now try it yourself with RestoraCell's amazing new skincare line built on the power of blue copper peptides. All natural, organic, made in the USA, and safe for sensitive skin. Save 30% on their Stem Cell Awakening Serum. Go to shrnetwork.biz/RestoraCell. That's RestoraCell and use code SHR to save 30% off. Remodel your skin today. Every day, there's a new wellness trend. Eat that. Do this. Avoid those. How do you know where to start or who to trust? Inside Tracker helps you cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, your DNA, your lifestyle, and your fitness tracker to provide you with a science-backed, trackable action plan on how to live, age, and perform better. Personalized, one-size-fits-one recommendations to help you optimize you. For a limited time, Inside Tracker is offering Superhuman Radio listeners 25% off the entire store. Go to shrnetwork.biz/inside tracker, INSIDETRACKER, to save 25% off. Change begins on the inside. Tinnitus. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
If there is one mineral you should be worried about not getting enough of, it's magnesium. Magnesium is the body's master mineral, powering over 300 critical reactions, including detoxification, fat metabolism, energy, and even digestion is influenced by the presence of magnesium. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about a new magnesium product I've been taking now called Magnesium Breakthrough. It's the ultimate magnesium supplement, easily the best I've ever seen or experienced. With all 7 forms of magnesium, I was able to arrange an amazing deal for my audience, and I guarantee it's the best deal available on this product. Seriously, with volume discounts combined with our custom 10% coupon code SHR10, you can save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough. And I promise that this deal is only available on this specific website, magbreakthrough.com/SHR. You won't find that deal on Amazon or even on the company's own website. Go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10 to save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough.
Move over, superheroes. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. We're talking with Dr. Sandra Kaufmann today about this notion that everybody is pre-diabetic. If you're not already type 2 diabetic, you're on your way. So let's talk a little bit about intermittent fasting, right? Intermittent fasting seems to have some interesting benefits, especially the mTOR, AMPK kind of modulation. Any role in intermittent fasting or even periodic long-term fasts in allowing the body to clean up some of the AGEs and get rid of them? Like, does autophagy play a role in that?
Lots of concepts in that question. So intermittent fasting is fantastic. Number one, I think we talked about that the last time. I have amazing respect for people that can do it because I am absolutely horrid at it. But what it does do is several things. So number one, it activates your AMP kinase, tells your body that you are sort of starving and puts you in a state of hibernation, which helps with innumerable aspects of not aging. And we also know sort of partially turns off mTOR, and that's a good thing on a short-term basis. We don't want to turn off our mTOR completely, blah, 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 right? Because then we lose our minds, and that's not good. In terms of autophagy, of course, intermittent fasting increases autophagy because when your body thinks that it's short of nutrients, it recycles what it already has to make better use of them. The body is just a brilliant, brilliant thing. In terms of AGEs, the answer is sort of yes and sort of no. You need the receptors for the AGEs to internalize these AGEs, at least the ones that are outside of the cell, bring them in and then sort of dissolve them. And that's not really autophagy. That's just sort of like cleanup job. You do have intracellular AGEs. There's fewer of them, but they do exist secondary to the high oxidation in the mitochondria and the metals and that sort of thing. And in that sense, a little bit of autophagy, of course, can get rid of them. But there's a difference between the outside the cell and inside the cell. But
okay,
now I'm thinking about it because my brain loves this stuff. If you think about the AGEs that are inside the cell, and I just find this amazing, when you start glycating your DNA and your histones, that's actually a trigger for autoimmune diseases. There's a certain histone that when it gets glycosylated leads to lupus. So by trying to prevent AGEs, you can actually try to prevent lupus as you get older. And that's very important for women because we tend to be a setup as we age. So that's sort of crucial.
What about drugs like GLP-1 and these types of blood sugar management products out there? Do you think that they have a role, not necessarily somebody who is diabetic, but someone who wants to slow down the AGE accumulation?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And there's several of them, and they all get fancy names, right? Glucose something, 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 and they're advertised with butterflies flying around, which makes no sense whatsoever. I love that. But you have to figure out or look at the etiology. How is this drug actually lowering your blood glucose? Because some of them block the absorption, some of them block gluconeogenesis, some of them increase your insulin, which then drives them into cells, which may or may not be a good thing. So you need to actually look at which one you're going to choose and how much lower you want your blood sugar to be. But absolutely, I take very small doses of a variety of them to try to stave off AGEs sort of like on a multi-discipline level.
Interesting. Bodybuilders eat several small meals a day, 5, 6, 7, 8 sometimes. They do this with the belief that has been handed down to us by people like Vince Gironda, that eating multiple small meals a day does two things. It keeps triggering mTOR, but cyclically, not you don't stay up there all day, pulses. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, it allows blood sugar levels to remain very stable. Would this be a possible approach, as far as dietarily to reducing AGE accumulation?
That's an excellent question. And I think it depends on how you define risk of AGE by amount of glucose. For example, is it any bit of glucose that you have in your bloodstream at any one given amount of time? Or is it like a cumulative under the curve thing? So if you looked at or if you could possibly count the number of molecules of glucose in your blood sugar or in your bloodstream over the course of 24 hours, would it be lower or not by doing that? Like if you're taking in the same number of theoretical calories, I don't know if that would make a difference or not, right?
Yeah, because I was just thinking, I wonder if, when you look at the diabetic model, right, they spend periods of time in hypoglycemia and periods of time in hyperglycemia and very little time in the middle.
Right.
All peaks and troughs with those people, right? And they have the greatest accumulation of AGEs, undeniably. So I'm wondering if maybe it's not the sum of glucose, but the height of the peak and the trough of that ends up turning on the machinery that seems to want to make AGEs.
Well, it's not necessarily machinery. It's non-enzymatic. It just happens. If you take a sugar molecule and you stick it next to a protein, you crank up the heat and you add a little oxidative stress, you're going to get an AGE. Mm-hmm. The question is there anything there to block it? Right? So if your glucose is super high, you need a hell of a lot of blocking agents. If it's low, then you need less blocking agents. Mm-hmm. My thought is always, okay, well, if there's 20 things that can sort of interfere with the process and you sort of take them throughout the day, regardless of what your glucose levels are, you're reducing relative risk of AGE accumulation.
Do you mention those 20 things in your app or in your book?
So some of them are in there. The book has probably been out for about 3 years. I put in everything that anyone possibly knew about it to that point. I'm working on book 2 right now. I'm aiming to have it out in 9 months, and it'll have more of this because we just know more now. We know about the enzymes in your intestine that create glucose. We know about all of the different pathways that you can sort of block it off. And I'll have a chart. This step is blocked by this step is blocked by that, blah, blah, blah. And they're just amazing studies that I've sort of uncovered. For example, there's a drug called hydralazine, and I don't recommend it to anyone because it's an emergency drug used to lower your blood pressure. So if you walked into an emergency room and you were having a hypertensive crisis, they would give you hydralazine. Yeah. But normally speaking, it's not so great to give to people. However, it is amazing in that it bonds to glucose. There's a fantastic study in rats, actually. If you create these nasty diabetic rats, spike their glucose, give them hydralazine, they measure the hydralazine glucose adducts, and then they measure it in the urine, and it just gets rid of all of it. So, of course, I have weaned myself up, if that's a word, titrated myself up to be on a ton of hydralazine for the purpose of getting rid of all of my glucose. I can't really tell people to do that. It's a little dangerous. And as I was doing it, I sat on the couch with a blood pressure cuff, trying not to kill myself. But it works.
What about just activity? Is this what we're talking about? The result of the fact that as a species, we have always been in motion until modern times now. It doesn't just getting up and moving around have a beneficial effect in glucose management that we have totally lost?
Oh, without a doubt. I think the population has become bimodal, actually. Everything used to be a bell-shaped curve, and it no longer is. It's totally bimodal. So in one end of the spectrum, you have the 400-pound people that sit there and eat potato chips and watch TV and do absolutely nothing else. And then you have the people that are probably listening to this program that are super athletes, eat amazingly well, and are just absolutely busy all of the time. And those are two very separate populations. So I don't want the people listening to this to think that I'm denigrating their lifestyle in any way. But you're right. As a species, people are becoming obese and slovenly, and of course it's spiking. The other thing that's going on is, in the old days, people didn't eat as much sugar. It's just become rampant in the last bunch of decades, and that is absolutely accelerating all of this.
Is there any evidence of AGEs in prehistoric populations? Has anybody dug up, petrified human? And I know they looked at cavities and stuff like that. Anybody look at AGE accumulation?
Not that I know of. It's a good question. I know that we can look at Neanderthal DNA, so you can probably determine if it's glycosylated or not. But to be honest, I've never actually seen anything about it.
I have a funny feeling
that it would be a lot less, I would suspect, because they didn't have refined sugar.
Yes, and
they moved around a hell of a lot.
Yeah, like sugar in your bloodstream is no big thing right before you work out, right? You could take a pre-workout drink that's got 40 grams of dextrose in it, and train with intensity for an hour, and your blood sugar is back down again because you burnt it up. It didn't linger around, and the body didn't have to go, hey, what are we going to do with that? The body went, oh, we know what we're going to do with that. Keep these muscles working. Mm-hmm. So I got a feeling that AGEs are a relatively new phenomenon for our species because we just don't move. And even me, look, I mean, I sit in this chair for 3-4 hours a day. I hate it. It gives me angst. I do get up and I go in the hall and do push-ups and I do body weight squats, but I'd rather be out there moving around, doing things. I got a feeling that AGEs are relatively new to our species because we have become, I remember listening to a lecture where they estimated that the average hunter-gatherer burned somewhere between 10 and 12,000 calories a day, just effortlessly, just hunting and gathering and playing and doing things. And we're focused on a 2,000 calorie a day diet for the average American. It's like, and we can't lose weight on 2,000 calories a day.
No, you're absolutely right. We've become absolutely stagnant. But the other sort of interesting thing that maybe you're not thinking about is we eat AGEs too. the way you prepare your food is significant. And there have been studies where you can actually reverse diabetes, or what they define as diabetes, by changing the way you cook your meals. So very high heat intense, quick cooking tends to create AGEs. So when people talk about caramelizing their onions or caramelizing their whatever, they're making AGEs, and you eat them and they do exactly the same thing. So you can reverse that by sort of, slow roast, or, slow cooking does not produce AGEs. It's just it's the fast, hot temperature stuff for the most part.
I want to take our last break of this interview. I want to put up the information about the book and the app again. It's at Kaufmann Protocol, KAUFMANNPROTOCOL.com. You can get the book, you can get the app, and you can learn a great deal of great information from Dr. Kaufmann. She is really on the bleeding edge of a lot of this stuff, and it's very, very worth your while to check it out. When we come back, we have listener questions, viewer questions we'll get to, and some other things of interest. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today. Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High quality, pasture raised, great tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose to tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/white oak and use code SHR20 to save 20% off your entire first order.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
You've heard us talk about the power of copper peptides here on the show. Now try it yourself with RestoraCell's amazing new skincare line built on the power of blue copper peptides. All natural, organic, made in the USA, and safe for sensitive skin. Save 30% on their Stem Cell Awakening Serum. Go to shrnetwork.biz/RestoraCell. That's RestoraCell and use code SHR to save 30% off. Remodel your skin today. Tonight, if there is one mineral you should be worried about not getting enough of, it's magnesium. Magnesium is the body's master mineral, powering over 300 critical reactions, including detoxification, fat metabolism, energy, and even digestion is influenced by the presence of magnesium. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about a new magnesium product I've been taking now called Magnesium Breakthrough. It's the ultimate magnesium supplement, easily the best I've ever seen or experienced. With all 7 forms of magnesium, I was able to arrange an amazing deal for my audience, and I guarantee it's the best deal available on this product. Seriously, with volume discounts combined with our custom 10% coupon code SHR10, you can save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough. And I promise that this deal is only available on this specific website, magbreakthrough.com/SHR. You won't find that deal on Amazon or even on the company's own website. Go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10 to save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Welcome back. Jerome is off camera, and he has a rattlesnake with him.
Oh, my God.
Oh, he's right next to you. No, I'm looking. Luckily, we're doing everything remotely. So Jerome is in his own office with his rattlesnake and not here. We've got questions I want to get to first of all.
I want to know what snakes have to do with longevity.
If you don't get bit, you live longer. See, so Jerome is actually enabling people in California and Los Angeles County to live longer, technically, because he's keeping them and their dogs from being bit by rattlesnakes. So there you go.
He's probably doing more than I am. That's fantastic.
Jerome was originally from, I forget, Jerome was originally from Harlem or the Bronx. We're both from New York. So we love each other because that's what New Yorkers do. But it's like, Jerome, how did you find yourself from Lexington Avenue to chasing rattlesnakes in the desert? That's a story in and of itself. So we have to talk about that. Does nicotine or nicotine gum play any role in glycation?
That's an excellent question, and not that I am aware of. I think I have read every article known to mankind on glycation, and I've never seen nicotine mentioned once. It might. I just don't know.
Len Moskovitz wants to know, what about gravity? He's talking about sagging skin. I mean, obviously, gravity has an effect, and it's going to have worse effect if the collagen is breaking down in your skin faster because of glycation. Right?
So gravity, right? Well, obviously, gravity is pushing everything down, but your body should be able to withstand gravity.
Right.
It's just a matter of, we all see it, like all of our faces and skin is drooping. And it's just because your collagen and your elastin is glycated over time. It's just
I hate
that it is.
I will not go get surgery, but I hate it. I hate my side profile because I got this. I used to be 330 pounds. I had this big fat face. If you can imagine my huge head actually bigger, that's what it was at the peak of my obesity. And so when I lost all the weight in my face, I ended up with this thing here, and it disgusts me. It really does. But what am I going to do? That's it.
So actually, here's a thought. You can actually tighten your skin with red and infrared light.
Really?
There's
I actually use red light. I use red light. I used the Juvicel. They were a sponsor for years. Well, not years. They were a sponsor for about 8 or 9 months. And I do use it, but there is just so much hanging skin here that without surgical intervention, it's not going anywhere. And I'm going to deal with it. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Drugs like prednisone really mess with insulin resistance. Is that true?
Yes. So prednisone drives up glucose. I mean, obviously, it's a fantastic anti-inflammatory if you're sort of behind the 8 ball in terms of some horrible disease. But it absolutely drives up glucose levels, and that'll screw your insulin without a doubt. No question.
Now, this Aiden Ray is a medical professional. He says, Doc, do you go with a typical TID dose and titrate up on the strength of hydralazine?
So what I ended up doing, I took the smallest dose I could when I started doing this, which was 5 milligrams. And I bottomed out my blood pressure to like 60/30. So that was a bad idea. So I cut it down to 2.5. And then over the course of 2 years, I can now take 100 milligrams 3 times a day, which I do not recommend anyone start with because it will absolutely kill you. But there's a great tachyphylaxis so that I don't have blood pressure issues, but I can glycate a ton or anti-glycate a ton of tissue with it.
But what about performance? I mean, if you basically you're talking that this is a glucose disposal agent, technically, right? The glucose is being bound to kind of a suicide molecule that's taking it with it. So your body can't use it for energy. So how does this affect performance?
So the good news is hydralazine is an extremely short acting drug. Any physician will tell you this. It takes about a half an hour to start working. And that's just the way, oral absorption, circulation in your body. It lasts for about an hour and then it's gone. Right. So if you decide to binge on a meal or have a donut, which I like to do, or whatever it is, if you follow that up with a little hydralazine, you're sort of negating the glucose issues. But in another 2 hours, you're going to be absolutely fine. I'm an avid athlete. I rock climb, I swim, I do all this sort of crazy stuff. And I've never had an issue with energy production.
Are there natural glucose disposal agents that you recommend as well? Is our alpha lipoic acid a glucose disposal agent, or is that
It is not well, so it depends how you define glucose disposal agents. Alpha lipoic acid can block the non-enzymatic steps in glycation.
Really?
Oh yeah, a lot of them can. Green tea does it.
Right here.
Perfect. Oh, I love that. It's like the cheap man's Neurontin. Makes your nerves feel better too. Green tea does it. Quercetin does it. Rutin does it. Silymarin does it. Which always leads me to the idea that you don't need to take a ton of these things every day, but a reasonable dose, small to medium, of many things, which gives you a multifaceted way of fighting all of this off.
Before we get to the last two questions from Robert Thompson, it's interesting that glucosamine finds its way into the anti-aging arena because of several studies that show that as little as 600 milligrams of glucosamine a day appear to extend life in humans. Have you seen any of that research?
I have, but I cannot tell you what the etiology of it is.
No, I know.
But I don't think I know why yet.
Early on, diabetics, type 2 diabetics, were discouraged from using glucosamine because it messed with their blood sugar. Now, I don't know if that meant it made them hypoglycemic or hypoglycemic, but it seems to also have a blood sugar effect as well. It'd be interesting to find out if its blood sugar effect is lowering blood sugar.
It probably would. A lot of things do. Like, you'd be amazed. You know that aspirin blocks AGE formation and lowers blood sugar. Ibuprofen does it. Diclofenac does it. There are a whole lot of things out there that people don't want to take because they don't want to, quote unquote, take medications that are fantastic for you, just not in the way that you're thinking. So it's certainly possible that it does lower your blood sugar, but I don't know why. And all the studies just sort of like an outcome without, the etiology pathway.
We talked about baby aspirin. I take a baby aspirin in the evening, enterically coated baby aspirin. Aidan Ray, like I said, he's a medical professional. He mentioned on a show just yesterday or the day before that you only have to take baby aspirin once every third day because its effects on platelet aggregation actually lasts 2 to 3 days after one single dose. And so I'm going to actually back mine down. But I also do take white willow bark probably 5 days a week as an anti-inflammatory. Of course, I take curcumin to lower whole body inflammation. I take a variety of different things that are supposed to help with that. But I think aspirin is fantastic, but I think white willow bark is better personally. Any idea?
Well, it might be. I don't think there have been any head-to-head studies that I am currently aware of.
No.
In terms of the platelets, you may not even need to take it as much as that. Once you sort of nuke your platelets, it takes 10 days for them to come back, which is the amount of days that we won't do surgery on people if they're on regular aspirin doses. But because of it's an anti-inflammatory, it reduces the risk of colon cancer, which I think is pretty phenomenal, which is completely separate than the anti-platelet thing. And the joke in the medical community right now is if they had introduced aspirin in the last 5 years to the FDA, it would never pass.
Yeah, I know.
Never.
Paracetamol, which is what? Is that Motrin? What is paracetamol? Generic.
Paracetamol, it's related to acetaminophen.
That's it.
Which is Tylenol.
A study was just done. So elderly people who have surgery, often because of the anesthesia, and you're an anesthesiologist, correct? By training, right? So they end up sometimes having short-term memory loss and even longer-term memory loss from a prophylactic dose of paracetamol before and immediately after seems to eliminate the post-surgery anesthesia negative effects to the aging brain. I thought that was fascinating.
Oh, it is fascinating, but I would argue that many things do that. People that ask me what to take, I load them up with free radical scavengers before surgery because that's what's going to get you. And I guess it depends on your age as well, because when you have cardiac surgery and you're on bypass, you worry about reperfusion injury. That's all free radicals. If you're using any of the anesthesia medications, sevoflurane, isoflurane, all of that is free radicals. Then, of course, you get a whole systemic body inflammatory response to surgery. So I tend to load people up on a ton of stuff, and they do so much better. I can't do it in the pediatric population because, the parents would have a conniption fit. But in terms of adults, if you want to help yourself, it's a fantastic way to do it. The interesting thing is that the medical community kind of frowns upon all of these adjuvants at the moment because they don't understand them, and they kind of freak if they tell you, or as a patient tells them, that they've been on these things. So for my good, close friends and family, it's the hush, hush, don't tell anyone, but it's going to be fine and you're going to do much better sort of maneuver.
Real quick, a few questions. Robert Thompson, alcohol, beer, wine, whiskey, problems, preference. What are your feelings about alcohol in this whole scenario of anti-aging and AGEs and stuff like that?
Well, I think it depends on the alcohol content. I mean, the glucose content of the alcohol, right? And you can, the answer is a little bit of something is always good for you, just a little. We all know that there's resveratrol in red wine. We know that there's quercetin in white wine. There's spermidine in beer. Whiskey's just disgusting, so I'm not even going to go into that.
Whiskey is not a women's drink, is it?
No, we hate it. We hate it. And then some of the ladies' drinks, we tend to drink stuff that has more sugar in it, so that's not so great. A little bit of wine is actually very good for you, and of course, it explained the French paradox of why they eat a ton of cheese, drink a lot of wine, and smoke, and they're actually bizarrely healthy. It's
I did a blog almost 11 years ago that showed that the French paradox has more due to the fact that the French walk everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
They walk from the restaurant, they ride bicycles, they're not in cars. I really believe that has a role in it. How about MSM, methylsulfomethane? How about, let's broaden this, sulfur-containing compounds and their effect on AGE accumulation?
That is a good question. So it tends to be the rate-limiting step in some of the endogenous antioxidants. So when you take that, it's actually beneficial because you make more SODs. So it actually helps you.
Okay.
You don't need a ton, but you definitely need some, which leads to my other hypothesis about micronutrient deficiency over time. As you get older and older, you're missing out on very important micronutrients. And I think that's sort of part of it. And I always tell people to take God, I can't even speak, a prenatal vitamin, even if you're a man and even if you're not pregnant, because tissues just tend to do better because we are assuming that a baby needs all the micronutrients that you cannot give it. And I think you should treat all of your cells like little newborn fetal cells, and then they just tend to do much better.
That's fascinating. That really is. Aiden Ray's last question. How about N-acetylcysteine? Right now it's on the chopping block, according to the FDA, investigating it. It is a glutathione precursor. It is a sulfur containing compound. What do you think?
It's one of the most amazing free radical scavengers that we have unto itself. It of course is a precursor to glutathione. I take it intermittently. I don't know. I don't really see why they're having a big fuss about it. I've not seen any problems with it. I mean, there are other scavengers that are just as good. It negates the need for all of these crazy people going to get glutathione infusions, which I think is absurd and really expensive. I don't know why it's on the chopping block, to be honest with you. I think it's a great medicine.
I don't either. One more time. The website is Kaufmann Protocol, KAUFMANN, PROTOCOL.com. You can get the app. You can get the book. Check it out. Dr. Kaufmann, thanks so much for being here today.
Absolute pleasure. I think I stick around and see the snake guy. He sounds fun.
Yeah, stay in there. I'll just move you to the lobby now. Stay in there. All right, we're going to take one quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by my good friend Jerome Williams, who has a lot more, let's just say, courage than I do to be out there gathering rattlesnakes. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today. Tinnitus, Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High-quality, pasture-raised, great-tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose-to-tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/white oak and use code SHR20 to save 20% off your entire first order. Every day, there's a new wellness trend. Eat that. Do this. Avoid those. How do you know where to start or who to trust? Inside Tracker helps you cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, your DNA, your lifestyle, and your fitness tracker to provide you with a science-backed, trackable action plan on how to live, age, and perform better. Personalized, one-size-fits-one recommendations to help you optimize you. For a limited time, Inside Tracker is offering Superhuman Radio listeners 25% off the entire store. Go to shrnetwork.biz/inside tracker, INSIDETRACKER, to save 25% off. Change begins on the inside. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, doing reps with the weight of the world.
Hey, welcome back. Look at you. This is funny. You've come a long way in your life, and I can only imagine where you're going to go after this. I shouldn't act like as though this is any milestone for you. Jerome Williams is a good friend. I met him during the Quest Nutrition Days. We had an amazing group of people there. We all knew something exciting was happening, and we were all very fortunate to be part of it. How you doing, Jerome?
Man, I'm doing so damn good, Carl.
So we got to take a little journey before we start talking about snake finding. Okay.
Yeah.
Did I make a mistake? Are you originally from Harlem or from the Bronx?
Harlem, 119th and Lenox.
Okay. So how does a kid from Harlem end up catching rattlesnakes in the desert?
Well, the journey was long for sure. But most recently, one of our mutual friends came to me with a problem. He said, listen, I've got a situation and everyone tells me that I'm crazy. Here it is. 60-acre ranch, dozens, if not dozens and dozens and dozens of rattlesnakes hiding under rocks, etc. We constructed a rattlesnake fence around the perimeter of the home, around the perimeter of the property, and then it came up. What do you think about canines detecting rattlesnakes? Because we had heard that Florida Wildlife Commission utilized canines from the Border Patrol to find pythons, and that's how it started.
Okay, so there were so it wasn't like you went on, let's Google and buy a dog that sniffs out rattlesnakes, right?
No, not at all.
So tell us the process. How'd this go?
So first, well, I mean, you know me. I'd latched on right there. I'm like, oh, here's a mission that no one else is trying to do. No one else wants to do. It's right up my alley.
You know, it's really funny. That's a really interesting characteristic you have. And it's in every area of your life. It's carried you through from career change to career change. But I even know of one where there was a pool that definitely had a leak in it. And several pool experts came out and said, it doesn't have a leak or we can't find it. And you found it. And you're not even a pool expert, right?
I'm not a pool expert, and I am stereotypical in that I don't swim.
Okay. But I mean, I know this about you. Like when someone tells you, nah, you can't do this, that something turns on in your head that goes, oh, I think you can.
Right. That at Quest, I was known as Captain Get Shit Done. Yeah. And you know what, Carl, it really goes back to Mama Joan. We got to give Mama Joan all due. because she was the one that told me, son, we live in America. You can do anything you want to if you put your mind to it.
God bless you.
You know, I don't need to know how to make this phone. I just need to know who does.
Right.
So
now let's talk about this. So where do you go? How do you start this journey? How do you find the dog? How do you train the dog? What do you do?
Okay. So I knocked on the doors of Florida Wildlife Commission. So just pounded on their doors, found out whom they obtained their dogs from. They obtained their dogs from a very, very prestigious location in New Mexico called National Canine Facility. National Canine Facility is the brainchild of a gentleman named Robert Noziska, nicknamed Nas, former Border Patrol. He was the trainer of the trainers of Border Patrol. Knocked on his door. He had dogs. He had already trained dogs. He was part of writing the protocol for pythons in Florida. So he and I got on the call. And the next thing I know, he says, well, you know, I've got some black labs because those are one of 3 breeds that can do this. Black labs, Springer Spaniels, Bloodhounds. You know, me coming from the city, I was like, well, I want the Malinois. I want a German Shepherd. I want
Right.
You know, as he calls it, I wanted a tough guy dog.
Right.
No, they're not. Their drive, the psychology of their drive does not allow them to detect the rattlesnake without going after it.
Right.
Where the breeds aforementioned will detect and come back to you. So I talked to my friends. We obtained 2 amazing black labs from them. They were put into training at National Canine Facility with Nas. And 6 to 8 weeks later, they were deployed out here in California on the ranch. Prior to them being deployed, I went down to New Mexico, trained with the trainer of the trainers, you know, became a pseudo apprentice, whatever's below apprentice.
Right.
Yeah, that was me.
Right.
You know, I was Kwai Chang Caine sweeping the floor outside of the and you know, I'm accustomed to that. I'm accustomed growing up in the martial arts. You know, you got to do it all before you even throw a punch.
Right.
And that's how it started. And that's how the dogs got here.
Okay, so when you worked with them down there, learning how to be the human portion of this team, was there anything surprising because you've never really worked with dogs that closely before, right? Have you ever worked with dogs as a team?
Not in a team. I've had my own dogs growing up, but it's a total different thing.
So was there anything that just made you go, wow, I didn't expect that? Like, I didn't know that that's how you work with the dog.
Absolutely. The most impressive thing that I learned was learning the psychology of the dogs, the drives of the dogs. You know, these are working dogs. They are not pets. Right. And I have this conversation with many people. They're not going to go sit and heel and play catch and do all of that sort of stuff. They are soldiers. They are soldiers, and they have one mission, and the mission is whatever they've been trained for. Bomb sniffing dogs, narcotic sniffing dogs, human remains detection dogs, same thing. All you change is the widget. So what I learned most was how to be in the pack with the dogs. So I had to become, you know, some may say it's my alter ego anyway, but I had to become a dog. Right. And then I had to become alpha dog.
So how do you do that?
You do that by continuously watching how they move, continuously watching how they react in these environments, and then controlling them through voice. There are no treats, you know, oh, here, Fido, go sit down. No,
found the snake. Yeah, right. You found the snake. Here you go.
Yeah, yay, woo. No, it's nothing like that at all. So you create a dominance over them through voice and through control.
So it sounds like you're saying that their reward is satisfying you to make you happy.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And within that criteria, I found out the hard way by being a hardhead. You don't reward them just because they're cute. You don't go petting them and talking to them, because that creates a problem in their brain where, wait, what did I do? All I had to do was show up.
Yeah, right. And I know people that literally, I had a neighbor when he would mow his lawn, his dog would follow him and get in his way. And he would keep going, good boy, good boy, good dog. The dog thought that he was doing the right thing by getting in his way.
That's right.
People don't understand. And, you know, dogs don't respond to broad vocabularies, right? You need to learn certain words like no, stop. That's it.
Right.
You know,
right. Yeah. And don't forget, you know, we as humans forget. We think they understand the word. They don't. They understand the sound and the inflection. So at one point during my training, I was like, "Oh, you guys are really good, yay!" And the trainer of the trainers said to me, he goes, "You know what that sounds like to them? It's gibberish,
right?
It's all gibberish."
Right.
So yeah, you had to become a member of the pack and then become alpha dog in the pack. And, you know, it's like any other mission, man, you know, whether you're military, LEO, NASA, you stay on mission, you know.
So now you bring this dog back to California, right? And now you got this 60-acre piece of land that is, the terrain is pretty rough. You know, it's a traditional desert type terrain. How do you, I already know some of these answers, but I want the audience to know, how do you approach 60 acres with a dog? Like, how do you do this?
Well, I have two dogs, first of all, K9 Yak, and K9 Mystique. First thing we did was we went out and we GPS mapped the 60 acres. We set it into sectors, so to speak. We did that from a Google Earth map, and we came down and Naz and I, you know, took out our satellite phones and we GPS it. We mapped it out, put waypoints on different things, and we then separated it. The branch is now separated into, I want to say, about 14 sectors.
Okay. Some
of the sectors are easily obtainable, you know, light grade, small grade, but there are a bunch that are very steep hills and very deep gullies. Right. And in the deep gullies, you have, you know, brush and weed and growth that's above your knees.
Right.
So to answer your question, we would then train with the dogs in the easier sections first, and utilizing scented objects that have the scent of the Western diamond rattlesnake. And once the dogs alert and come back and indicate, then they get their reward, which is a pat on the head and maybe go play with a toy. But that's how we did it. We mapped out the 60 acres.
So you actually determine which of these sectors are even need to be worked, because if the dog goes in and doesn't find any scent, then chances are there's no snakes there, right?
That's correct. We use the criteria of making the house the ape, you know, at the beginning, we just panned out.
Right.
Because that way you can tell the clients, you know, hey, listen, we've covered the sector around the house, the sectors around the house. So if you'd like to bring your animals, if you'd like to bring your kids and, you know, grandma, somebody, we've cleared that section. Now over here, maybe in section 5, 6, or 8, we had some alerts. We've pulled some snakes out. So let's stay away from that area for now.
So when you do encounter a snake, the dog, I'm guessing, points like a pointer would for pheasant, right? He finds it, he lets you know.
Well, he doesn't point. Here's what happens. Part of the other training that I had was all about, you know, windage and heat rising and scents and trajectory and obstacles and challenges on this terrain. The dog is working a scent cone. Okay, so here's a snake, wind is blowing from behind, dog catches the cone, the scent up ahead. They actually triangulate, hits the end of the scent cone.
Yeah, come back. Right.
And then slowly.
They traverse until it gets tighter and tighter and tighter.
Absolutely. And then at that point, instead of pointing, what they do is they come back and sit, which says, hey, listen, the rattlesnake is somewhere in here.
Right.
So I send them back in. I try to get as close as possible. One of my canines actually does a twirl and sits.
Like he gets excited, he spins around, then he sits down.
Does 3 little twirls and sits. The other one has a little stutter step. And again, part of the training is watching for these alerts in these dogs and to determine how close they are to the snake. Once you get close enough, then you leash your dog up and go in safely and pull out the snake.
So once a dog gives you like the pinnacle of the cone and says, okay, Jerome, this is on you now. There's a snake somewhere in there. How do you approach this? I mean, show me your snake grabber. You just had it up.
So if I'm alone, which is 90% of the time, if I'm alone, I take the dog away from danger. I, give him praise away from the potential snake, put him away.
In their kennel? You put him in their kennel.
Correct. Put them in their kennel, which is to them their home. They would much rather stay in their kennel than do anything else other than work.
Right.
Then I go in. And this is a snake tong. Tongs on the end. These are not sharp edges, so you're not going to really hurt. Yeah,
we don't want anybody from PETA to get it. Oh, they're hurting the snake.
That's exactly why I said it.
Right.
And at the end are the grips, which closes the hook. And then on mine, just in case it's nighttime, I have a little flashlight.
Nice.
This also extends, so I can go out.
Safe distance. Keep a safe distance.
Everything is about distance. So
what is the effective striking distance of a Western diamondback rattlesnake?
The length of their body.
So 3 feet.
3 feet, 4 feet. When they are coiled, that means they're going to propel themselves from the back end of their tail. They're all muscle.
Right.
So then if I'm alone, I go in, I try to find them, I pull them out and put them in the bucket, just like this guy that's in here today.
Has he been moving much?
No, he came. I found him last night. He's in here.
Yeah, leave it closed.
Oh no, I'm not gonna. Oh no,
yeah.
I love you, but I don't love you that much to die.
To die for me.
I mean, in another scenario.
Yeah, right. Take a bullet is a different story.
Take a bullet's a whole different story.
Oh, look, a snake.
So, and to further answer your question, and then usually I'll have 1 or 2 wranglers with me that I can just stay back. I don't have to put the dog up, and they will go in and find the snakes.
Okay. So, now this is a brand new business. I mean, there's no other rattlesnake wranglers out there in America today.
Let me tell you what I've been told. First of all, when we talk to, the Border Patrol and National Canine Facility and Florida Wildlife, they all said, well, this hasn't been done, which was intriguing to them. Once my friend and I determined that it could be done, and once the dogs were acquired, and once the training and all of that, I've had 2 different county sheriff canine SWAT teams come and meet. And both of these county canine SWAT teams have said to me that we are the only team with dogs in the country that detect rattlesnakes.
Now, a lot of people are going, oh, but this is a big problem. California, Nevada, Oregon, Texas, Arizona. People don't realize how prevalent the Western rattlesnake is in this. I mean, people get bit. More importantly, people's dogs get killed a lot by rattlesnakes, don't they?
Yes, they do. And it's an unfortunate thing. There is such a thing as rattlesnake avoidance training for canines. And that teaches them, that they see or whatever, to back away as opposed to go playing. But it is a huge problem in the coastline in the states that you mentioned, and it's rattlesnake season. Rattlesnake season runs right around the beginning of April, and depending upon the heat, can go all the way up through November and into December. Rattlesnakes, what they do, they hibernate, or they have a brumation period, and they come out in April, and they're just like us. It gets too hot in their den, they come out on the road. It gets too hot on the road, they go back in the den.
Right. So talk about the returning snake. So if you catch a snake, how likely is another snake to take that corner? Like remember when we were kids, if somebody got run off a corner, whatever they were doing,
Right.
Somebody else took that corner. Do snakes
right.
go, oh, this is an open area, I'm moving in?
Well, what I've learned is that there's never just one and there's never just seven. There are dozens.
Really?
The one that I caught just happened to be slipping.
Mhm.
You know, he had enough of his body out from under a crevice. So it's not that they take over the area, it's that they're already there.
Mhm.
And what we found on this particular property are multiple rattlesnake dens. So one of my wranglers is fearless. He lifts a rock up and kicks things aside, and he has no protective gear on it. Me, I've got everything on that could possibly, I've got gloves and boots and I've got chaps, face shields, you know, my dogs have a snake-proof vest, a snake-proof collar, a snake-proof muzzle. But yeah, there's never just one, and they're territorial, but I caught one on one side of the property, a gopher snake. So, you know, gopher snakes, they're good, they're fine, they're harmless, they kill rodents and everything. Placed him back. Then within a week, he was over on the other side. He was literally 3 football fields away.
Right.
Now, maybe it was his twin brother, but he looked like it was the same guy.
That reminds me. So when you retrieve a snake, you relocate it. Do you ever mark the snakes? Do you ever have you thought about marking snakes?
No, I have not thought about marking snakes. The only thing that I've thought about is utilizing, I'm just now reaching out to some of the vets in the area, veterinarian clinics in the area, may utilize their venom to produce anti-venom for dogs, you know. So, but no, I'm not, I don't really care to track them.
Well, and I just think it would be fascinating if you could stick something to them and then go relocate them and see if they ever come back. I mean, you could learn a lot if you did do something rudimentary, put a type of paint on them that won't come off, but then they shed, so it'll always come off. What about the breeding season? When do snakes breed? And when they do breed, they have lots of little slithery sons of guns, don't they?
Right. Now, I don't know when their breeding season is. I really haven't looked into that. I've paid more attention on, you know, capturing them and relocating them after they've done their breeding. But I've seen videos where they've had tons and tons of little baby snakes running around. So, but that's a good thing. I'm going to make a note. When is their breeding season? It may be all the time. Maybe just like us.
Yeah, maybe like humans. Whenever we get the chance to be jiggy, we do it.
Hey, well, you know, because one of my wranglers did tell me that, so we've done a couple of night snake hunts, which is you want to raise the hair on the back of your neck.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So you're out there and they tell me that they come out at night to cool down, to mate, and to hunt. So I guess their mating season is the same thing, same time as their season. That's a you know.
Yeah. Oh man, I was just gonna. Are you hiring out now? I know you're doing this one ranch as the kind of the test case. But are people reaching out to you in California? You're in Los Angeles County doing this right now, right?
I'm in Ventura County.
Okay.
Right above Los Angeles County. And yes, one of the ideas I had when this became a reality, I started thinking about all of my associates and friends that are out of work, specifically in the serving industry. Restaurants, bars, etc. Tons of people are out of work. So I started talking to folks. I go, listen, you know, this will become a franchisable opportunity for you. You know, come on board and learn a little bit about handling the dogs, because handling the dog and training the dog are two separate things. Right. I'm not a dog trainer at all by any stretch of the imagination, other than what I've known from growing up. So folks that have an affinity for dogs and are not afraid of being out in the sticks have been reaching out to me. And I asked everyone, you know, listen, if you have an idea, you want to come on board, you know, you can be a wrangler, you can be a handler. I've already brought on 3 people that are helping in different areas, because now that this has become a thing, and, you know, Jane Doe and John Doe in the produce section at their local grocery store are talking about, oh my gosh, I had another rattlesnake in the driveway. I'm looking forward to the day when that person responds, well, you know, you don't have to wait until you see the rattlesnake and then pay someone $250 to come remove them. you can be proactive and clear your property with canine snake finders. We'll come out and we'll traverse your property, whether it's a small manicured lawn in Calabasas or a 20 to 60, 100 acre ranch in Hidden Valley, Ventura County. What I'd like to tell people is, we give peace of mind. We give peace of mind. I just obtained a piece of equipment for myself and the dogs, for example. The dog's collar is a GPS powered collar, satellite driven, Garmin. I have a handheld satellite phone. When the dogs go out on large properties and alert and indicate, I can mark that on my phone and say, okay, Mr. Lenore, here's where we had alerts. Here's where we pulled snakes. So it's not just me trying to explain to you where these snakes are. To your point, that requires more people.
Right.
That requires help. I've got a couple of good friends that have already come out and helped me. And I've got a few that are interested. And now the National Park Service has contacted me. One of the local country clubs has contacted me. So if there's someone out there that's interested in learning this craft, we'll give you a course from National Canine Facility, and let's get going. Let's go save some lives, man.
How do people reach you? How do people reach you who want to do this? How do people reach you who need it done to their property?
Well, I've got a landing page thus far, not as sophisticated as my millennial friends, but it's K9 spelled out, the letter K and 9, snakefinders.com. On that, there's an email opportunity, there's a phone opportunity, and we'll come out and survey neighborhoods and survey your yards and things like that. We're starting next week because school is back in session. I had an idea, let me go and clear some of these neighborhood schools, at no cost, because kids are important. And, so there's so many opportunities, back to your point about the availability and scalability of this as not only something that saves lives, but something that can help someone pivot into another area in their own career. Because as you've noted, I can't even tell you how many careers I've had. And it's just out of, usually it's like when one door closes.
I got a feeling this one's going to be your legacy. I think that people 100 years from now are going to know who Jerome Williams is because you started this phenomenon. I really do. I'm not just saying that. This is huge. Look, Robert Thompson says, do you eat the snakes and any recipes? But this is a more serious question. I know a lot of bikers who want rattlesnake tails. I know a lot of people who eat rattlesnake, find restaurants serve it. What about that?
So again, there is, from the business perspective, there's ancillary revenue opportunities. One, yes, there are some of my biker friends that want the rattles. If a rattlesnake should find itself in a deceased position, then yes, that's available. Relative to do you eat the rattlesnake? I have 2 chefs that have said, listen, we would love to take rattlesnake meat and make rattlesnake jerky. So there's that. And then, of course, there's the skin for those folks that are interested in, food, patch, man.
So are you reluctant to step into that because of the potential backlash? Like, it's one thing to catch them, but it's another thing to sacrifice them.
I am about saving lives, whether it's human, reptile, animal. That's my first and foremost thing. So going in, my goal is to make sure that your dog, your cat, your kid, your grandmama doesn't get bit. After that, it's relocate the rattlesnake into an area that's not far from where we found him, because you don't want to disrupt their whole thing either. On this particular property where I am, there's, as I said, 2 perimeters of rattlesnake fencing. So all we need to do is relocate them
on the other side.
On the other side, let them go live their happy rattlesnake life. In manicured lawns and things of that nature, I can take the rattlesnake with me and take them to some of the dog training programs that utilize live rattlesnakes to teach dogs avoidance training. So no, it's not about going in and killing a rattlesnake,
But I mean, if somebody said to you, "Hey, Jerome, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do with them, but I'll pay you $10 a rattlesnake. Just drop it off here. I'll get rid of it for you. It'll never go back to that property again. Don't ask me what I'm going to do." Would you do that?
That's not going to happen.
Okay.
That's not going to happen. I'm in charge of, where I pull that snake from and where it ends up. Because
What if a guy contacts you and says, "Listen, I just want to let a couple loose in my mother-in-law's backyard"?
Oh, well, then that's a different story. That's a different story.
I'll do that for free.
Yeah. There's a few mailboxes around that,
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah.
I think this is fascinating. I really think it is. I think if you're listening to the show and you're looking for a career and you live in a part of the country where rattlesnakes are a problem and you just went through hell with COVID, lost money, all sorts of horrible things, and you're thinking, man, I just wish I could find something that I'd enjoy doing. This sounds like a lot of fun to me. I got to believe it's rewarding working with the dogs. I've heard that the dogs are this way, and then as soon as you put that rattlesnake vest on them, they completely change.
Absolutely. When they come out of their kennel, we have nice, beautiful kennel built for them that they overlook the mountains and all that. But when they come out of that, it's either one of two things. They want to go out and run around, or they sit there and wait for them to put their vest on. And the moment you put the vest on, they have nothing else on their mind other than finding a rattlesnake.
Rattlesnake bite survival techniques. I got to believe that you probably have an anti-venom shot available.
Yes.
What can you tell us about if you get bit by a rattlesnake, how long do you have to apply that anti-venom? How even with the anti-venom, how at risk are you of illness or death?
Thank you for asking that, because my significant other has been worried about that from day one with this. And
sure.
So I say, and it's not my original thought, there are two things you need: your car keys and a Sharpie after your anti-venom. You Sharpie the area that you've been bit, and you get in the car and you beat like a bat going to the hospital, because within 9 minutes or so, you could start losing ambulatory and then neurological, So it's, maybe call me a crazy kid from Harlem, but I never think of that.
No, you can't think of that. And
That's
plus, you have an anti-venom shot, right? You have an anti.
Yeah, you have that.
If you take that shot, does that pretty much stop the emergency or no?
No. It's almost like the Johnson & Johnson COVID shot. It will just kind of eliminate you going into the hospital or extend the time that the venom will affect you.
Right.
So, but to your point,
how does rattlesnake venom arrest the central nervous system? Then you stop breathing, and you basically tank out. That's it, right?
That's correct. I mean, you know more about the after effects of the bite than I do.
Yeah,
you really do. And as I said,
I want to know.
Yeah, it's interesting, because when I think about what I don't think about, people go, "Wait, are you crazy?" I'm like, no, I don't think about getting bit.
Yeah, right.
I don't think about that. I literally am on a mission. And are you afraid? Not really. I'm more respectful.
Yeah, aware.
Yeah, aware is a great word.
Yeah.
Aware is a great word. I'm more aware. I'm more respectful. And don't forget, rattlesnakes are not offensive. They're not trying to attack you. They're minding their business until you get close to them. Then they give the rattle and they go, "Hey, listen, you're a little bit too close." So in our situations, we are the hunter. We do have the advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you have all the correct safety tools. Your dogs are protected. I see that.
Hypertension is what rattlesnake venom does.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. Blood pressure meds, ACE inhibitors. Hypertension just means your blood pressure drops so low you just can't do anything anymore.
Yeah.
There you go.
There it is.
This is fascinating. One more time, I want to plug how people can find you. Give me 1 second, because Natalie made this beautiful placard. K9snakefinders.com, finding snakes and saving lives. If you want to be a snake finder, reach out. If you have snakes that need to be found so that your family pooch doesn't get zapped, reach out. Jerome can help you. You know, Jerome, the truth of the matter is this isn't really much different from when we were kids because we tried to avoid snakes then too.
This is true. They just happen to be on two legs.
Yeah, exactly. We called them friends until we found out they were snakes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we called them snakes. Look, man, I love you. Thank you very much for being here today. I think you're doing great stuff.
Thanks, brother. I love you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Talk to you later. And that's it for today's show. I'm off the air because I'm going to Nashville, Tennessee for the grand opening of the Redcon 1 gym in Nashville. If you are in the Nashville area, stop up, say hello. We'll be hanging out with Aaron Singerman, a host of amazing people, Eddie Gallagher. I can't even think of all their names, but I'll be there. All right, look, we'll see you with more Superhuman Radio Monday. Thank you for being here today.